I'd jump up and look around to see if anybody saw it.
Yeah. Everybody see me fall?
Welcome to Critical Café.
Join us as we chat about the latest episode,
the campaign as a whole, and Critical Role in general.
All while we partake in a delicious cup of coffee. So grab yourself a tasty beverage,
settle into your favorite cozy spot,
and get ready for a little geek philosophy. Welcome to Critical Cafe, where we're going to talk about Campaign 3, Episode 35 of Critical Role. Before we do that, my name is Brian, and here is Crystal.
Hi.
And let's go ahead and we'll dive right in. All right, so, the first half is really about them getting to where they're going to go. So they start out on the airship.
It's going to take them 4 or 5 days to get to Drusar, and I think their first order of business is interrogating him again to see if there's any more information that they can get out of him. So they pull him up out of the hole and pretty much start strong-arming him, you know. I mean, I think at this point we know Ashton and Chetney are all in on interrogation, so they take over and start asking him a whole bunch of questions.
And I love the fact that, so they've been carrying him in this portable hole forever, and finally he's out, but now they're putting him in mold storage. So it's like...
And the man's arms, his hands have been tied behind his back this whole time. I mean, true. I don't even want to think...
Yeah.
Mold storage is where he needs to be. Because he probably stinks.
If Matt came up with that on the fly, which I'm sure he did, that was chef's kiss. That was good. So they got really not a whole lot of stuff out of him other than him trying to bribe them to not let them go, and Travis really pushing to get more money, right?
And so, really, the only other thing too is just that he confirmed he'd been working with Artanovo for 2 years, and it really was to further his political gain, and that how he received the goods was just extra stuff got loaded on his ship in different ports, and Hexam's name was on the shipping manifests. But other than that, that's really all the info they got out of him. So, which
is interesting, and that'll come up again later. But the real important thing I think here is the fact that they are really trying to focus on what they need to do for Laudna, but out of nowhere, here comes a storm, right? So they're in the middle of all this, and they get... and I love that Matt does this, because I think travel could be very boring, and it could have been fast travel, and they could have just, almost like a cutscene and said, okay, well, this is what happens along the way. But I think that they kind of needed this a little bit, because everything's been so heavy that having a little bit of a travel scene, so to speak, and being able to play through it. But it was a skill challenge of sorts, where they had some rolls they had to make. And so tell me how that turned out.
I think Matt has like a randomized table that he makes up in advance. And whatever they roll is whatever the weather is like, or whatever they encounter nature-wise. So... big sandstorm blows up, and the ship's captain thinks that they would do better if they kind of get down close to the ground. So they get way down close to the ground, trying to get out of the worst part of the cyclone of the storm, the winds buffeting them, and they have 2 sails that end up snapping off. So there's a lot of damage to the ship, and that guy's a great character, by the way. He's hilarious. Yes, he's by far, in a moment, he's like, "Oh, we're doing okay. Oh, no, it's go. Oh, it's gone."
Some dice rolls are made. Some of them good. No, one of them good. The rest of them not good. And I think all but, was it Ashton? Everybody but Ashton ends up falling off.
Surprisingly, Ashton rolled well.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he really rolls great most of the time. Everybody else falls off and land, spread out in the sand.
Yep. So, and perfect opportunity to show different environments, to kind of world build a little bit, but also perfect opportunity to have this random encounter turn potentially into a battle. But it's almost like in this circumstance, I think, is where, as a DM, you get to use creatures as more of an environmental hazard than it is really a battle in a lot of ways. It's almost like, it could have been just a sand pit, but just having like these creatures that are there that are kind of going through this. And then Fern with her antics is just hilarious as usual. So,
I know.
yeah.
She lands, gets up, and just starts screaming.
Yeah.
Wildly, because she can't see, they're in the middle of a storm. They can't really see anybody. They're all a little spread out. And she's just like, ah! She doesn't even yell help or anything of that. She's just, ah! So, of course, she attracts the attention of local predators and ends up starts sinking into the sand.
And to be fair, if I fell off of an airship into the desert sand, I probably would scream just like that. So,
would you?
Maybe.
I'd jump up and look around to see if anybody saw it.
Yeah. Everybody see me fall? Ironically, you want them to know that you fell, but you don't want them to know that you fell.
You don't want them to see it. You want to tell them it happened and have a cool story for why, but you don't want them to see it.
That's right.
No. Inevitably, I am someone who falls down a lot. Stairs are my nemesis. Every time, it does not matter how injured I am. I jump right up and I look. It's horrible. I'm bleeding profusely and I'm like, who saw it? Who saw it? So.
You probably landed on your dice too, but that's all right.
Or slipped on him.
Yeah. So, okay, so, and during this, like, she did the whole Fremen walk to, like, make sure that she was trying to avoid the...
She mirthfully leapt up, trying to get out, and she did okay, but she started slipping back in. Yeah. And then Orem did some fighter shit, jumped down into the hole, and somehow was able to wedge his shield in the pincer of this lobster worm thing. So
creature,
and then he shoved her while he was pushing it in. He shoved her up more, like another 15 feet. So that's how she was able to get out completely.
Yep.
And then
used one of his expertise dice to be able to push her out with one of the maneuvers. Fighters, most underrated class in the game, in my opinion. But also, and I like the fact that it was his shield that was keeping everything open. And it was a high enough roll to do it. I think he rolled a nat 20 on it. And Matt usually rewards those. But one of the things that he did that I really like as a DM is him describing it. It wasn't just that he got his shield in the way. He was like, it was, because your shield is this magical shield and it was crafted so well, it's able to withstand it, whereas a normal shield might have buckled. And I love how he does that because it's a shield and it's a magic shield, and Orem got it in the course of his adventure, but it just points out how cool it is, and it makes Liam as a character, as a player, kind of feel good about his thing, and it makes the character feel awesome about his shield. It's just a really good thing to do when you can, as a DM, to kind of highlight what your characters already have, and when it works, I kind of like it. So
and people who have magic, or characters who have blood hunters, they've got cool crazy crap they can do. So kudos on Matt for really trying to bring out the highlights of a class that's been around from the beginning practically, and most people don't. They think they're boring. I like them, but
and kudos for Liam for playing one really well. You can take a halfling fighter and just make it awesome, and it's all about how you want to take and flavor your character and bring
personality.
So exactly, so it's really well done. But also with all that stuff going on, Imogen casts fly, and they're able to move up, and then
FCG pops out a propeller arm, and Inspector Gadget's his way over to Chetney, and picks him up, and it's funny because Imogen's like, dude, you're flying, you don't need a propeller, and he's like, but it's so much fun, So I could just see what the character art's gonna be, from the critter crowd. So I can't wait to see some of that stuff. I think it's gonna be it's great for visual. But
it again, like I mentioned before, like it's sort of a little bit of a change of pace, and it's that palate cleanser in the meal that lets you go from like this really heavy stuff that was going on last couple games to, they still have some heavy stuff on the horizon, but like,
Yeah.
falling off a boat and flying away from some creatures and using a propeller to pull yourself through the air even though you don't have to. Well, that stuff is a good way to kind of make sure everybody remembers, okay, it's a game, let's breathe, have fun, and let's get back to the business at hand, which, by the way, once they do get up there, they start discussing like what their next steps are, right? Like where they're going and what they're going to do next. And it kind of makes sense. What were the main plans that you were seeing?
First and foremost, the first thing on every single person's list was getting Laudna back to life, bringing her back up. And then secondly, it was getting to travel to Eos so that they can meet up with the Grim Verity. I can never say that word. Verity, not variety, but the Verity.
Well, it could be a grim variety of things. I don't know.
Right? I mean, it goes.
Yeah.
But, they're that group that that has been studying Ruidus and that Odahan's group has been killing. So their next step is to Laudna and then figure out what's going on behind the scenes with all the moon stuff. So...
Yep. And then funny enough, like as they are also up there, like then it's time to repair the ship, and Chetney's like, all right, where are your tools? And like when he takes a look, he's like, these are what you have. And of course,
where's your wood and where are your tools?
Yeah, to start crafting a little bit. And I think that's pretty much a good place to go to break, which is what they do. So let's dig into the second half after the break. So then, second half kicks in, and they're pretty much trying to complete their task, which first and foremost, head to Esteros. They were actually hired to go get Treshy, and so now they're actually able to complete this task that it seems like it was a long time ago, because it kind of was in the flow of the episodes, but I don't think in game terms it was that long ago.
It was travel, and travel time was the biggest chunk of it, the way there and the way back. They were not there long, even though we had a couple of games. Yeah. In that time frame, those games were like that. The last game where they were fighting Odahan the last session was 2 sessions. Yeah. Of the same day. So I don't really think a lot of time has passed at all. It's there and back.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Like how that works, game world versus our world, and like the time that goes on, and. The other thing I think that it's important to kind of remember is like they're coming back to him, but they're coming back to him, one less member of the group. And so that's also first and foremost in their mind as they're coming back there. But so how does that go? Like in your mind, how did it go when they went back and started meeting up with him? What were like your main takeaways from that?
I mean, first off, it was hilarious that his whole house was booby trapped to the nth degree. Like, clutch moment for, Lord Esteros and his, paranoia. I kept just going, this dude's paranoid, but he's been playing kind of a shadow game, and, his name is just now getting out there, even though he's been behind the scenes working. So I understand. And then, with his history, he started out as a fighter, a protector, a bodyguard, and then he was left the manor and became a lord kind of in that way. So he comes from more of a, a gruff, rough fighter background that would be paranoid if you're playing in all these political games. So
yeah, I think so too. I think it also kind of shows that like there are a lot of ways to protect yourself besides magic. I think a lot of times people go to magic in D&D a lot, but man, like it makes sense. Like, they're seeing it from this side, but like, dungeons came from somewhere, right? And I know this isn't a dungeon, this is his house, but like, this is one of my favorite things about like that point that you bring up without his booby-trapped house is like, if it was a different scenario and they were going into some mad wizard's, castle or dungeon or whatever, they would expect to run into all kinds of traps.
Happy Fun Ball.
Right. Like even just, breaking in, is the door trapped? Is this trapped? And so it's interesting to like be on the other side of that, to see the person like making the traps for his own place, because if some other adventuring party were to go in there, or if you think about it, if they hadn't met Esteros the way they did, and for some reason needed to go in there, they would have had to contend with all of those traps instead of being his friend and being let in. It's really interesting, kind of like, I love the fact that he did it that way, because it kind of shows the mindset of the person actually building all the traps to begin with. So it's
because
cool.
he doesn't have much staff at all. He just has that one lady, I think, that's there during the day. So that's all him, and he's a spry old goat pretty much.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, he said he's been preparing for this day, and he was not lying.
Well, and also, if you are in the kitchen baking pies and cakes, you need to make sure no one's going to sneak up on you when you're in the middle of making, all your baked goods like he loves to do. So I think it's important.
I mean, it's a ready weapon, in my opinion.
That's true.
Hot cake pie to the face.
Stuff, so, yeah.
Hot cake mix to the face. Beaters, batters, like lots of ways.
That's true. It's true.
Knives.
So then,
kitchen.
Yeah, there are plenty of knives there. He obviously gives them their reward, which was great.
Lots and lots of platinum.
Yeah. I think
rolling in it now.
Yeah, they are definitely doing better than they would have done if they.
Well, and then think about it. FCG doesn't take money, and Laudna is dead right now. So. They're great, and they put aside the amount for Laudna, but otherwise FCG's like, oh, I don't even, and Ashton tried to snatch it, but Laura, not Imogen. Laura was like, no.
Yeah, it's interesting, like the way they handle that. I think is really well, like as far as putting the money away aside for really, they're putting it away from Marisha, right? Like, so it's they don't have to do that, I guess, in game term, but that's probably something they all agreed on, which I think is good.
And it just shows consideration, even if the person, if she died, if she's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, the money will go back to the group. It's just, if they can get her back, which is their main goal, they don't want to have not given her part, because she did everything until the end. And then Odahan killed her to make a point. So,
That's true. Yeah, I wonder if when they take a break and they go do whatever they do on break to kind of, relax a little bit, I wonder if Marisha is still their encyclopedic knowledge with her notes to help them.
Like, because, give me your notebook.
They're missing that right now. Like, where
she's usually so many times.
Yeah, it's so true. And so, if you're the note keeper of your D&D group, you are going to be people's friends. Like, because there are going to be times where people forget. And
well, I mean, that's me.
Yeah,
I have 6 pages for this episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you are the note taker of this group. So, this group of 2. Yeah. So it's useful, right? And like everybody's got their own way of playing, but like it's fun. Yeah. So they get paid, and then Esteros gives them a couple sort of choices on things they could do if they want to.
He gives them 2 options. Because he doesn't want to keep Treshy. He just wanted Treshy caught and brought back. Yeah. And so they have to get rid of him somehow. They're not going to keep carrying him around in the hole, because they really want to put Laudna. They put her in there after they get rid of him. So they really want to just go ahead and offload him wherever. So Esteros told him they could take him to the Citadel and turn him in, but that would be anonymous, and they would not get a reward, nor would they get the acclaim for the Bell's Hells. Or they could take him to the Shishadre lady. She's the one that has the bounty on his head. And so they choose to go that route because they want the money. And they want their name spread. I think they want the acclaim. They want people to know it was Bell's Hells. So
so that goes fairly well, except for trying to like get more information out of her. I mean, they get paid, which is good.
And they get paid really well.
Yeah. So one of the things that was also really interesting about this is that they brought up, and she really perked up about this, that it was likely the Cerberus Assembly that were involved, because they saw crates with the markings on them.
Yeah, the assembly stamp.
But she's like, where's your proof? I'd love to, this is an allegation, and they didn't have any. And so I think they were all kind of kicking themselves for not having. I mean, who would have really thought that they needed proof or whatever? But
Right. Well, and really, they, the minute they got off the boat, it was bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
They wasted no time in hitting a lot of the notes that they needed to hit. And
Yep.
so I think, Lord Esteros doesn't ask them for proof. He just believes what they tell him. So I don't think that they even gave any thought to the fact that, when Chetney was throwing away the old crate, that they would need it for further proof later on. Yeah, so, sure. It's a missed opportunity on their part, but it just adds to the story, I mean, that lady was just like, all right, bye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Peace out.
Yeah. So after that, they are kind of moving on to kind of rest for the night. I think it was time for them to do that.
Spire
so they went to Spire by Fire.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And while they're there, they decide to kind of talk with Ashton and dive in a little deeper, so to speak, because they actually go get in his head a little bit, and they try to, and when I say they, it's really FCG and Imogen who are trying to go in and help him dive deeper into memories and stuff, which was a really interesting take on how to do all this stuff. And I really liked the effect of explaining the deeper passages into the memory. It was really cool. I like how that was done from both the player side and from Matt's side. It worked really well.
I agree. And I think some of it is because Gianna Hexam's name has come up a couple of times. Mm-hmm. He owed a debt to her that he had to pay off, so he was finishing that up when they first formed as a group. And then he has so many missing memories from time spent in her home that he really went to them and said, please, I need to know more. Yeah. I don't know what happened to me. I don't know what happened, when I became broken. And so they agree, even though they know that the risk is especially not good for the person that they're, penetrating the mind. So they kind of get comfortable in a safe space and they dive in, and FCG ends up getting the bulk of the information while Imogen kind of gets trapped in her own, it's like she's in the area of the possibility, because we find out that Gianna Hexam isn't who created Ashton as he is today, which is what he's thought this whole time, where he has the crystal on his head, and he's got the stuff that kind of floats viscously. We find out that it ended up being Milo, who is actually kind of a neighbor friend person, and it was because he got caught infiltrating her house, Hexam's house, got blasted out of a window, and basically died. And Milo brought him back with some molten glass, and then he poured one of those vials of potions over him, which was the potion of possibility. So, and then that's when he came back. So that's all up in there, and I think that's what lends its its properties to his class, really.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's it's a nice bit of homebrew, class building / features of just Ashton as a character itself. It was probably something that the two of them worked on together to put, but whether or not, how much of that Taliesin knows specifically, or if it was just sort of spitballing and that's how it worked out. It's really interesting. I like how they were able to do it, but they almost got trapped in there, with, with some of the roles and everything. And I love how that happened too, because it was like they were trapped behind these crystal walls, and
almost like fun mirrors or something, but prisms. Which is really cool how Matt did it.
Yeah, kind of mirroring the crystal structure, he was, on the side of his head. So it was really interesting to me, how it all pulled together. And
I think one of the things that was an interesting tidbit to learn too is that Ashton's in pain all the time. He is a chronic pain sufferer. The minute that happened, he has referred to himself as being broken ever since. And it's mentally, I think, some, and then physically as well, because while they were in his head, they got to experience the fact that every single thing he does hurts. And I think that's, and a really important like outside point for inclusivism.
Inclusivity.
Yes, inclusivity.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of us out there, myself included, that have chronic pain disorders or diseases, and you don't really see it portrayed.
That's right.
Most people, like when you see it on TV, you see people laid up in the bed, you see people not doing
Yep.
anything. We didn't know until now that Ashton was in this pain all the time because he still handled what needed to be handled. And
Yeah.
I think that it's important to show that side too, where, you know, you still have stuff you've got to get done. And even though it hurts, you got to push through.
Yeah.
And okay, now I see why his whole attitude for life is, you know, F this, F that.
Yeah.
So,
and where the rage might come from, right? Like when he
yeah,
rages.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a really good point, and I think it's really well done. Like the way it was sort of introduced and the way that he introduced it, because he didn't come out and say it the way most people don't. They don't go around talking about it. It's just you kind of deal with it and that's it. But then when someone actually does dive a little deeper, they find out, and I think that's literally what happened in the game.
It gave me so much more like context with Ashton, and like it made me feel more for him, you know. He's not been he's probably at the bottom of my list as far as the characters in this campaign go. I like all of them, but he's probably my least favorite, but this makes him more likable because I understand now.
Do you think that this is just interesting because after what you just said, do you think that it also sheds light the other way for someone like you that does have to deal with that, to have that view, like where, just like you just said, like you didn't have, he wasn't your favorite, but then you just learned about what he was going through, and now it put it in a different context. Does that give you any insight of what other people must go through, like not knowing about like what you go through? You know what I mean? Like
100%. When you're having a high pain day, it's one of the most, and this is not in any way derogatory or as a bad comment.
Sure.
When you are in a really high level of pain and it is an ongoing issue that you cannot get away from, it is one of the most selfish mindsets, because you literally cannot get past how you feel.
Right.
And what ends up happening is you don't always realize how you come across to other people.
Yeah.
Without them in mind at all. You're not trying to be mean to them. You're not trying to be thoughtless. You're not trying to brush things off, but you're literally just trying to put one foot in front of the other. And it's horrifyingly hard. Yeah, and you're thinking, okay, I'm making it. But then you find like you've left a negative thought. You've left a negative imprint on people. And then you think, but I don't even remember that, because you don't remember it, because your brain, especially when you're in pain like that, it does not hold on to memory. It's just one foot in front of the other. What do I have to get done today? Okay. Are we a 5? Are we a 7? You know, like where are we at? Are we having a worse day? What can I take? You know? So it makes a lot of sense. And I definitely understand the character a lot better and his humor. Because that's how I get through a lot of it too, is just being sarcastic and like, whatever, just add that on, you know? Like
it's a really good take on it. Thanks for sharing that. Like, I think that it's a good way of kind of, I don't know. It also shows like how D&D can be a lot more than what people might think from the outside, and in the best possible way. Like it's never really anything that he was doing overtly, and like the way he was playing it, it was just like, I'm just going to play this. And so really interesting. So so they help him through that a little bit. They find out more. They're able to get out of his head eventually. Yeah. And so finally decide to go to the collective of Bodon, which is sort of the grove, right? Like where they're meeting. And then there is a gnomish gnome caretaker there that is sort of who they knew they were going to need to speak to. What's interesting to me is they also do all this messaging stuff in the middle of talking with her. So they message Delilah trying to find out information. And that's really interesting during that conversation.
Lots of possibilities stem from that short little talk.
Yeah, and what did you get from that? Like, what were your? I have ideas, but we'll talk about that later. But go ahead.
Yeah. So Imogen, they're really desperate to try to figure out any way to bring they're really desperate to find any way to bring Laudna back. And so as they're going to meet Manaya Trey, along the way, they're just throwing off ideas. Do we message this person? Do we message that person? Who can we contact? And, all the while mentioning Keyleth, but not really like seeing her as, I don't know. It was weird. It was kind of like one of those things that was shoved back. So at a certain point when they got there, they were trying to ask Manaya, like, what...
So basically they were trying to figure out, like, okay, she owed Esteros a favor, but what is it that she could provide as far as what that favor could be?
So
but it seemed like she was a little lost in that too. So
she was super confused, because while that's going on, while one person's talking to her, Imogen is like, I'm just gonna message Delilah again. So then she messages Delilah, practically just begging her, what can I do? And Delilah very faintly says, whatever you can do, do it, because I'm fading and I'm going to take her with me. So that gave Imogen just this sense of urgency. Like, okay, all right, well, maybe we don't have the time frame of the spell that was cast.
And then, so Liam's having to roll for some type of check. He's not really sure what it is. And then, so then they've got this message to Keyleth, and she's basically... like, well, I've been trying to reach you guys.
Orem's been rolling high enough that he's been withstanding her, her message. so he's been impervious to her messaging him. But yeah, pretty much right after Imogen messaged Delilah, she's pretty frantic. So then she almost immediately messages Keyleth and is like, please, are you done with what work you had? Can you please help us? I don't know what we can do. And, they just happen to be standing around some trees.
Yep.
Hello, guys, because it's weird. I'm like, the whole time they're going through the town and they're heading down to this lady. Not once do they mention, oh, listen, she's the keeper of the trees for the city. And Keyleth said to, like, Orem knows, he just pick out a tree and let me know.
It feels like we all knew as viewers that that's what needed to happen so that Keyleth can show up. But the players were hesitant about it. And I think that it's because whenever you have players who have their current characters potentially meeting their previous characters, which are now in the world sort of mythos, they're sort of now in NPC realm a little bit, where like they're continuing on. It's sort of tricky. Like, so I wonder if they were like, oh, there's no way we're gonna meet up with Keyleth right now. I don't know. I wonder how that was gonna play. And of course, it happens, and you see the tree opens with the green light, and Keyleth comes through, and Matt's playing Keyleth NPC style. We also get the best line from Travis of the whole show, or Chetney, I should say, which is the best use of wood ever.
I know.
That was great.
I know. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Him and his wood obsession.
Yeah, true. And so I think, and then, after talking and kind of explaining what's going on and actually showing Laudna to kind of highlight the fact that, it's a somber moment, and Orem is kind of explaining, you've met this person before under different circumstances. It was a long time ago. And then I think it all hits, and then she's like, oh, we don't have much time. We need to go. Opens up the tree again. There's Whitestone. Time to go through. And that's kind of where they close out.
I know.
So what are your thoughts? Like, I know that's where they're closing out, but like, what do you have any theories about what's going on? Like, what do you
I mean, when it was all said and done, I was just sitting there like, holy crap, we're going back to Whitestone. Like, oh my God. Okay. Well, she said she knew somebody that could help. Yes. So, first theory is that could be Pike.
Yeah.
That's really the only one that I got.
Well,
but who knows what connection she's made in the years,
Yes.
So
tricky.
But then we're also going to Whitestone. So who resides at Whitestone,
Yeah. So, well, there's a lot that could happen there. There's a lot of, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of history with everything that happened with Delilah and the Briarwoods way before everything was reclaimed and everything. But like, which made me start thinking, and it was something that I think you said, you know, during
with Laudna.
yeah, with Laudna is
Yeah.
like, it was almost like a Horcrux, right? And
Yeah.
that got me really thinking. I was like, yeah, it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying Horcrux is like whatever, but like then I really got thinking about it. Like,
Yeah.
what if Laudna was, and I say Horcrux, what I mean in D&D terms is a phylactery. Because what is a Horcrux but it's just a phylactery. It's another way of saying it's a phylactery, which is what a lich uses to keep himself or herself going, which by and large, I love Harry Potter, just like everybody else that probably watches Harry Potter and plays D&D and stuff, but it really, Voldemort was a lich, and all of the Horcruxes were just different phylacteries, right?
Right.
And
because
so
of his soul.
yeah, and so to me, what if Laudna this whole time has been a phylactery for Delilah Briarwood, and that was the exchange? It was,
Yep.
I'm going to make this deal with you so I can live again as Laudna, as being this and getting the power. But what does Delilah get out of it? Well, she gets a tether. She gets a tether to this being
Foothold.
to become this lich, this archlich. And so, or to resurface that way, which is really interesting. The sad thing, though, is the way to really destroy the lich is to destroy the phylactery.
Right. Which is why when Imogen messaged her, she said, I don't know what you have to do, but do whatever, like, do it.
Yeah.
I'm fading and I will take her with me. So it totally backs up the idea that it's a phylactery, like she's a phylactery. Part of me wants to think that it's going to like she'll come back and it'll play out and she'll know that she's going to have to go at some point, and like willingly, is like, okay, guys, like you've got to stop her. Like maybe she's the big bad again, but
see, it's possible that goes that way. I'm also wondering and kind of worried that do they find out some of that because of the connect. Now when you get to Keyleth and you get back to Whitestone and all, you got some pretty powerful people that have also had experience with the Briarwoods.
Right.
When you get to that level, if they've got access to that information, what if they find out that by bringing Laudna back, they're also bringing back Delilah Briarwood? That the only way just to ensure that that Delilah doesn't come back is to let Laudna go.
Right. I think right now they think that she's benign. I think that they don't like her. I think that they know that she doesn't have anything good in store for Laudna, that she is not a good person or whatever she is. But I think that they don't think she's that strong, as characters and not as players.
All of Whitestone would say differently.
Exactly. And Keyleth knows the story. So I imagine if they spend any time with Keyleth or people there, they'll get a better picture of who Delilah is.
Keyleth was there. What a crazy situation that is for Marisha to have, if that's the case. Again, this is all just theory at this point, right? But if that's the case, what a crazy situation is that is for Marisha to have one character maybe be voting against her other character coming back.
Yeah.
That would be so sad. I mean, it would be great as a story, but it would be so sad,
One of the other things too that I was thinking about in the time between the last video and this one is, how I brought up that the ritual to become a god was technically named a ritual of seeding, and so when Odahan was fighting them, she told Fern she was a lesser seed, and she told Imogen she was a stronger seed, and that she needed them. It's this, where is that going to go? Who is trying to become a god? Who's trying to like open up a god like lock or structure, or like, are they all pieces to a puzzle? And does Delilah fit into that, and where?
Did Delilah have influence Laudna to
Yes.
connect with Imogen
Residuum,
to get that power?
Residuum's being trafficked from Whitestone.
It would
It's
be sad if the heart of the friendship between the two of them was somewhat influenced by Delilah seeing, oh, she's a seed of Ruidus or whatever, so we need to get close to her.
Right. That's the whole reason why I chose her. I know I got chill bumps.
Yeah.
So the whole lich and phylactery thing that you brought up, that really has made my brain start working. And what's the overarching goal? I mean, we already had like a whole season dominated a lot by Delilah, so I don't know if she's going to end up being the driving force behind all of this again, or if she's just going to be a part of it, like
I don't know.
A part of a way to, maybe she's going to become a full lich, and then, but she wants to help unleash destruction with whatever god they can let come through. I mean, I don't know.
Lich, please.
I know, lich, please. But yeah, no, it's very interesting to think about. Lots and lots of possibilities.
Well, I am excited to see what happens in the next one. We've got this week off, I think, so that gives everybody a chance to catch up. I'm sure you've all watched the last few episodes. If you haven't and you did watch this one, then you probably did that out of order. You should watch that before you watch us. But it's time to get caught up on any of the other ones or go rewatch some stuff. So check it out, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So
I am too. I can't wait to see. I mean, how in the world Matt's going to do Whitestone? It's going to be amazing.
I am from a DM perspective curious about how that works too, just to see how that all plays out. But it's going to be good either way. So all right. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and we will catch you next time.